Good afternoon, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a great Tuesday, everyone, and God bless you. Let's get into the news. President Trump was in D.C., and the liberal theories were out the window. All the conspiracy theorists, over on the liberal, the blue checkmarks over on Twitter and the mainstream media, and of course all those who don't have a brain cell to begin with, all were out there theorizing that there were a rustling Trump on the tarmac of the D.C. and Dulles. That's right. That's what they were all out there spewing. And of course, it wasn't that right. President Trump was not being arrested in Dulles, Washington, D.C. No. Instead, he was dared heading to a golf course, but these people are so eaten up with TDs they think anything that the president does is going to end up in an arrest for him. So it doesn't take much to trigger these individuals are really getting going. And with Trump being in D.C. and absolutely set off firestorm on social media. This is coming to us from the Gateway Pundit. It says update on President Trump's trip to Washington, D.C. Another day of liberal tears. That's right. Earlier today, the Gateway Pundit reported that President Trump was in Washington, D.C. on a surprise trip. The video of President Trump landing on Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. was going viral. Trump is in D.C. on a surprise trip, and you can see it here. We'll see Trump come out in just a moment. Maybe not. Honestly, he was dressed to his golf attire as he was coming off. There are photos of President Trump arriving in Morristown, New Jersey for this flight in D.C. Here's the pictures of President Trump out there. More from the far left alternate YouTube. Andrew Layden was on his way to catch a glimpse of President Joe Biden's scheduled visit to the Pentagon on Sunday evening, when he received a word from independent aircraft trackers that former President Donald Trump's private Cessna Citation jet had taken off from Morristown Airport in New Jersey and landed in Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia. And what happens to be an unannounced trip to the nation's capital late in. Redirected his car delis and recorded Trump's plane taxiing just after a touchdown. A motorcade was waiting for his rival late, and was tipped off on the President's Trump flight to Washington late and happened to be at the fence when President Trump plane arrived. So of course, Donald Trump has landed in Dallas this evening, right? And they full speculation mode went in there. Now our update. The Gateway Pundit spoke of our context on Trump team and we're told the president is okay. This morning President Trump posted onto social that he will be working from Trump National Golf Course in Washington, D.C. today. Imagine that, right? Him at his golf course. But of course, he's been arrested according to odd lefties right now. They got him now. The walls are closing in, as they sat there and they have had their day. Of course, if you were on Twitter, at any point during this, it was just filled with the crazies that were coming out stating that he was being arrested. They're getting him, that was it. And then they were all disappointed when they found out he was at the golf course. Quite hilarious, actually. And now, poor CNN, they just can't catch a break. Now woke leftists are panicking over the fact that a pro-Trump right-wing billionaire just took over that fledgling news network. That's right. We're gonna take a look at how leftists are panicking over the recent leadership change at CNN. Let's dive right in here. We've got some major bombshells coming out of CNN of light to really okay. We got Twitter going nuts over the fact that a CNN commentator is predicting that the GOP is going to take over the Senate. At the same time, social media is going nuts over the fact that a bona fide Trump donor has basically taken over CNN. I'm not kidding. The left toys over at Twitter are absolutely freaking out over CNN new ownership. And they're seeing CNN go back to actual reporting. Reporting on factual news, like the GOP is indeed poised to take over the Senate. Leftwards are treating that attempted actual journalism as sacrilege. How dare you? How dare you? As Greta would say, right? How dare you actually do the job of reporting? You CNN are supposed to be the major propaganda wing of the Democrats, but now you've gone like reporting facts and stuff. You know what that means? That means we're gonna have to boycott you. And that's exactly what we're seeing trending on Twitter of late, what they're calling now the Christian nationalist networks in. Brilliant. Now, what really got this going was a piece by CNN, Chris Cillizza, and one of their chief political pundits. He wrote a piece predicting that control over the Senate was going to go Republican in November. And he's not alone in thinking that, right? There are plenty of pundits out there right now who recognize that not only has polling been historically very bad when it comes to midterm Senate races, past polling is far exaggerated Democrats' support, especially when it comes to the Senate. But they noticed all the energy that we're seeing right now in terms of voter enthusiasm is solidly on the side of the GOP. And this is especially the case after the Mar-a-Lago raid. And that's an absolutely key predictive indicator for the midterms. Dick Morris was just talking about this a few weeks back. Whenever you're dealing with a midterm election, the key factor is always turnout. And that's because on average, 50% of the voting population does not come out to vote in the midterm election in races. For Congress, sometimes that number dwindles to just 40% of voters, right? The key is turnout. Who among the voting population is going to come out in mass and support these candidates? And this is where Rich Baris's polling has been so valuable, in my view, because the trend that he's identified of late is that wherever Trump is involved in midterm elections, he's bringing out the vote big time. Republicans have come out in record numbers for the primaries, virtually every single contest where an ultra-MAGA candidate is on the ballot. And they've been winning. I mean, they've been winning quite literally everywhere. So Rich Baris is predicting a safe pickup right now. It's gonna probably get more, but safe pickup. And 25 seats in the House. That number should grow as the polls start tightening up with the typical Republican surge that we see in September and October before an election. Remember, Cullen Youngin was down 10 points to Terry McAuliffe around this time last year in the Virginia gubernatorial election. Of course, he went on to absolutely crush McAuliffe, so we got to save 25-seat pickup as we speak. Kari Lake looks like she's going to go on to win in Arizona's governor, same with Masters. J.D. Vance is gonna kill it in Ohio. Herschel Walker is starting to break away. He's gonna take Georgia. We're seeing movement in Pennsylvania. Both Mastriano and Dr. Oz are starting to surge. Alright, so the fact that you've got to CNN pundit predicting the Senate is gonna go Republican in November is right in line with these trends and trajectories. So what's the problem here? Well, the problem is, according to left-wing social media universe, the problem is that kind of reporting is not so much reflective of reality, as it is reflective of CNN's new management, and that new management, to their utter shock and horror, it has nothing less than a bona fide Trump donor billionaire, that is pro-Trump billionaires, a fella by the name of John Malone. And a number of articles are coming out basically accusing CNN of purging their woke stars and employees as part of a deliberate attempt at remaking CNN and what many consider to be a pro-Trump image. No, you're not dreaming. This is real. This is really real. As I've heard, it put the leftist media as freaking out that a billionaire who supported Trump, who donated to Trump, who has a history of supporting conservative causes, is now calling the shots over at CNN. Now, this leadership change is all the result of a recent merger between Warner Brothers, which owns CNN, and Discovery, and Malone as one of the most influential board members on Discovery. And now, to the horror of left-wing outlets like the Daily Beast, he's begun flexing his muscles with CNN. This is why they're all freaking out over the firings of the ultra-leftist correspondent John Harwood, right? He was the latest to go. This is a guy who actually made the outlandish claim that there was, quote, zero evidence that Joe Biden had any connection with Hunter Biden's illicit business dealings. And then, of course, you have Mr. Potato Head. He's gone the utterly cringe-worthy, repulsive Brian Stelter, and then the Zoomer groomer, Jeffrey Toobin, he got kicked out. Jeff Zucker, the anti-Trump president, he got kicked out. Chris Cuomo got kicked out. But that was his own doing. But the pattern appears relatively clear when CNN journalists who remain nameless told the Washington Post, quote, people are freaked out, it almost feels like there's a pattern. Is there a purge going on? They seem to be sending a message, watch what you say, watch what you do. So this is how the left-wing media is interpreting not only all of these mass firings, but even when CNN actually begins doing precisely what their new leadership wants them to do. And that simply report the news. That's all John Malone. When all said and done, that's all Malone has said he wants from CNN. He's on record for saying that all he wants is for CNN to go back to their golden era of their nonpartisan journalism that characterized their news coverage back in the 90s. That's only once. The fact that leftists both within CNN without can only begin circulating conspiracy theories about a right-wing takeover of CNN just goes to show how far removed from reality the left really has become. Which means that with this new leadership, the days of CNN, being a flagship for liberal democratic propaganda, may indeed be coming to an end. And in the end, delusional liberals will only have themselves to blame. Hopefully you folks enjoyed this chat this morning. Thanks for being here, folks. Big hug. Ciao. Goodbye. God bless.